In this video I'll show you how to make an Inventor assembly using these two parts that we did the tolerance study on during our last class. So I'm going to close this down and I'm going to open up Inventor, and I'm going to go ahead and close this. No. Okay, so you'll just be at a new Inventor session. There's a button up here that says New. Double click on the New button. Then choose Standard IAM. IAM stands for Inventor Assembly Model. You can double click on that. So what opens up is a blank Inventor model modeling session to make an assembly. And so what we're going to do is we're going to drop those two parts into here and we're going to put those together. And dropping those parts in, Inventor calls placing the parts. So we're going to pick on Place Component right here. And when this opens up, we're going to pick the base first. So we're going to pick on our V-clamp base and pick Open. And you're going to see that model come in. That's the end view of that IPT. What you want to do is just pick and then right click and pick OK. And in doing that, you'll only put in one instance of that part because we only need one of those in this drawing. Now, I want to show you something else we also want to do. Move your cursor onto the base and right click and choose Grounded. We want to ground the first piece. Alright, the other consideration we have in the order that we place things is that the order that parts are placed is the order that they will get in the parts list. So if this is the first part we place, this will be part number 1 in the parts list. So we usually want to choose a part that's a main part, or maybe the part that all the other parts assemble to, or whatever, when we're placing our first part. We'll go back to the Place tool and pick on that. And this time we're going to pick the clamp and we will pick Open. So we're not going to try to eyeball that and place it on there. We're just going to place that out here in space. We're just going to pick, right click, pick OK. That way we only get one. Now let's look at our front view of those, and you can see how far apart those two are from actually being aligned. Now I have two work planes that run down through the center of these parts, and you may not have those, and so we want to put those in. So a good way to do that, and this will call attention over here to our browser, go over here to your base model, that's an IPT, and right click on it and pick Open. And when you do that, you'll see that the base will open. It will be right down here. And I'm going to delete out that mid-plane work plane that I have on there, and let's put one in. So you're going to pick on work plane up here, pick on the down arrow, and choose mid-plane between two planes. You can pick on this side right here. You can go to the opposite side over here. You can pick on your view cube and spin it around and pick right there, and you can see it puts a mid-plane in, and we're going to save that. So we need a mid-plane in here, and then you go back to the home view if you want to see that. Now let's go back to our assembly. It's right over here. Going to pick on the assembly, and I'm going to go over into the browser tree, and I'm going to find the U-clamp. I'm going to right click on that, and I want to pick Open, and that's going to open up this, and it'll place it down here on the bar. And I'm going to go ahead and delete that work plane out, and then we're going to come up here to plane. We'll pick mid-plane between two planes. We'll pick on this edge. You can pick that corner of the view cube, pick that one, it places that. We can go back to home and pick Save. So now we have a mid-plane work plane placed in both of those. We're going to use that to align those. So I'm going to go back to my assembly so you can see your work planes now. The way we put parts together in Inventor is we constrain them. And when you constrain two parts, you create a relationship between those two parts. So I'm going to pick on Constrain. And the first constraint that we have is this one right here, which is called the mate constraint. And there are two different solutions you can have in a mate constraint. This takes two planes and puts them to where they face each other or oppose each other. And the other type of mate that you have is where you have two planes that are coplanar, but they're aligned next to each other, so they're flush. So this is an opposed mate right here, and this is a flush mate. We're going to use the opposed. Actually, on this part it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to keep it in opposed. Up here I have to choose a selection, and number 1 is blue, so it's looking for my first selection. So I'm just going to come down and I'm going to pick on this plane because I'm going to choose both of those planes to align it. So I'm going to pick there for my first pick, and you'll see the box switches over for the second pick. Just pick on this, and what it will do, it will align those two planes. Now mine, it turned upside down, and I can live with that and make it work, but actually it's a little confusing for it to do that. So I'm going to do an undo and take that back. I'm going to go back to constrain, and instead of using this guy, I'm going to switch over and use the flush option. And so I'm going to pick here, and then I'm on my second pick. I'm going to pick here, and that aligns those. And if we look at them in the front view, you can see that the planes are perfectly aligned right here. Alright, now I'm going to apply that, and in fact I'm going to close it so I can kind of drag this. What you'll notice is you can still put your mouse on this and hold down with the pick button and drag it around. You can't drag this guy because remember we right clicked on it and we grounded it. So we want that guy to not move so that everything else has to move relative to the base. The next constraint is we want these two surfaces right here, these two edges, to fit right under these two ledges that we have right in here. This ledge here and this ledge on that side. So we're going to also use a flush constraint, or actually I'm sorry, the mate constraint here. We're still on mate. We're going to pick that. When we pick our first one, I'm going to zoom in, and you see on this surface, if I pick on that surface, you can see that arrow. So I want that plane right there, so just so you can see which one that is. I'm going to pick on that guy, and now it's put me in. It's wanting my second pick. So I need to pick on the bottom edge of that ledge, and so I'm going to go over to my view cube and pick on that bottom corner of my view cube, which is going to turn this up like that so I can see that ledge. And then I want to move, and you can see there's a little arrow. It looks kind of like a cone on that, and what it did, I was in this opposed mate. I picked the top of this surface and the bottom of that surface, and it flushed those two together. If I want there to be a little offset, I can type in a distance. It'll put a space between those, but I'm just going to go ahead and apply that. And I'm getting a weird message there, but those guys are aligned now. I'm going to go ahead and close this, and let's look at it in the front view. So what we should see is that this plane and this plane down here, those are both mated together. We've got a gap on this side and a gap on this side. That's being determined by aligning this right down the center. So I'm going to go back to here. Alright, so now I have my clamp and my base put together, and you should be able to drag this clamp forward. Alright, and so hopefully mine's going to work well enough to let me do that without doing something stupid here. So anyway, what I want to do is I want to drag this guy. I don't know why it's not letting me drag. What I want to do is drag this back a little bit so that I can still see this edge, but I don't want to cover any of that hole. So there we go. Now it's letting me do it. So I'm going to drag just back about that far right there so I can see this counterboard hole, and I can see the back of that. And I want to come up here and save that. Okay. What that does is it finishes my IAM. The next part is to take this IAM and place it into an IDW. So I'm going to show you that next.